What if the most advanced technology ever discovered isn't made of silicon, but of silence? What if the laboratory of the future was actually built 5,000 years ago, not in a basement in Geneva, but in the caves of the Himalayas and the temples of the Nile? Close your eyes for a second. Imagine a world where we've spent centuries building faster cars, sharper screens, and more complex algorithms, only to realize that we've been trying to find the outside of a circle. We are living in a strange moment in human history. It's a moment of profound irony. For decades, we looked down at the superstitions of our ancestors from the high pedestal of modern physics. We laughed at the idea of an invisible energy connecting all things. We dismissed the notion that the mind could influence matter. But then, the microscopes got smaller. The telescopes looked further back in time. And suddenly, the walls of the laboratory started to bleed into the verses of the Vedas. The white coats are meeting the saffron robes in a hallway that shouldn't exist. And what they are whispering to each other is enough to change everything you think you know about being alive. Think about the way we view our bodies. For a long time, science told us we were biological machines, meat suits driven by chemical reactions. But if you look closer, truly closer at the subatomic level, there is no meat. There is no solid thing. There is only a vibration, a dance of probability, a flicker of light that appears and disappears millions of times per second. The ancient rishis called this Spanda, the divine throb. They said the entire universe was just a single note being played on an infinite string. Today, we call it string theory. We changed the name, but the truth remained the same. We are not a collection of parts. We are a symphony of movements. Take a breath. Feel the air enter your lungs. In that simple act, you are participating in a ritual that is billions of years old. The atoms of oxygen you are breathing right now once sat inside the heart of a dying star. They are borrowed. Everything you call mine is on loan from the cosmos. The ancients understood this as prana or kai. They knew that the breath was the bridge between the visible and the invisible. They knew that if you could master the rhythm of your lungs, you could master the rhythm of your destiny. Science is just now catching up, measuring how rhythmic breathing synchronizes the hemispheres of the brain and calms the amygdala. We are finally proving with data what they knew by feeling. We've spent so much time trying to conquer nature, forgetting that we are nature. Consider the observer effect in quantum mechanics. It's the foundational headache of modern physics. The discovery that a particle only decides where to be because someone is looking at it. This implies something staggering. It suggests that the universe isn't a finished painting hanging in a gallery. It's a sketch that is being drawn in real time by your very gaze. The Upanishads stated this clearly. As is the human mind, so is the world. They didn't mean you can wish for $1 million and it appears. They meant that the quality of your consciousness determines the quality of the reality you inhabit. If you view the world through the lens of lack, the quantum field collapses into scarcity. If you view it through the lens of infinite potential, the field remains open. You are not just a passenger on this planet. You are the co-author of the physical laws you experience. But why did we forget? Why did we trade this deep, intuitive mastery for spreadsheets and antidepressants? Perhaps it's because we became obsessed with the how and lost the why. We learned how to split the atom, but we forgot how to heal the heart. We learned how to map the genome, but we lost the map to our own souls. Jung once spoke about the modern man in search of a soul. He argued that our neuroses, our anxiety, our deep-seated sense of meaninglessness come from the fact that we've cut the cord to our ancestral wisdom. We are like sailors who have thrown their compass overboard because we think we've memorized the stars. But the stars are moving, and the sea is getting deeper. The ancients didn't have Wi-Fi but they had interbeing. They understood that the separation between you and the tree in your backyard is an optical illusion. Modern ecology is finally verifying this. We see the mycelial networks under the forest floor, a literal wood wide web that shares nutrients and information between species. The forest is a single organism, and so is the human race. When you hurt another, you are quite literally hurting a different version of yourself. This isn't a moral platitude. It is a biological and quantum fact. Your skin is not a boundary. It is a porous membrane. You are constantly exchanging atoms with the room you are sitting in. You are bleeding into the environment, and the environment is bleeding into you. So, where do you actually end? The ego hates this question. The ego wants to be a lonely island. It wants to be special, separate, and safe. But safety is a myth in a universe that is constantly exploding into new forms. The ancients taught us to lean into the impermanence. Anicca, the Buddhists called it the law of change. Science calls it entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. But while science views entropy as a slow march toward heat, death, and decay, the spiritual masters saw it as a grand release. If nothing stays the same, then your pain cannot stay the same. Your trauma cannot stay the same. Your limitations are not a life sentence. They are just a temporary configuration of energy. Imagine if you lived your life with that knowledge, not as a theory, but as a felt reality in your bones. You would move through the world with a lightness that borders on the miraculous. You would realize that you are not the waves on the surface of the ocean, the moods, the bills, the heartbreaks. You are the ocean itself. The waves are just something the ocean is doing right now. Think about the concept of time. Einstein shocked the world when he said that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion. He essentially confirmed what the Maya and the Vedic scholars had been saying for millennia. They saw time as a spiral or a great wheel. They knew that now is the only coordinate that actually exists. Yet how much of your life is spent in the then or the maybe? We are ghosts haunting our own futures. We are paralyzed by the memory of things that are no longer happening. The hidden trap isn't a secret government conspiracy. It is the habit of the mind to live everywhere except where the body is. Modern mindfulness, now a multi-billion-dollar industry, is simply the act of reclaiming the present moment. It is the discovery of the obvious. But why did it take $1 billion industry for us to realize that we should pay attention to our lives while we are living them? We have been conditioned to believe that the truth is always out there, that it's in a textbook or a new app or a 5-step plan. But the ancients were unanimous on one point. The truth is an inward journey. They used metaphors of the pearl in the lotus, or the kingdom within. They were pointing to the fact that consciousness is the primary reality. Matter is the byproduct. This is the hard problem of consciousness that keeps neuroscientists up at night. They can map every neuron. They can see the electrical storms in the brain, but they cannot find you. They can see the piano, and they can see the keys moving, but they cannot find the pianist. The ancients knew why. They knew the pianist isn't in the brain. The brain is the instrument. The consciousness is the player. When the instrument breaks, the music doesn't die. It just loses its medium. Consider the implications of this shift in perspective. If consciousness is the primary fabric of reality, then your internal state is not a reaction to the world, it is the source of it. The Hermetic texts of ancient Egypt spoke of a principle called the all is mind. They believed the entire cosmos was a mental construct, a thought being held by a supreme awareness. For centuries, we looked at this as primitive mysticism. But as we peer into the quantum vacuum, we find that at the very bottom of reality, there is no stuff. There is only information. There is only a field of infinite possibilities that requires an observer to become real. Pause for a moment and look at your hands. You see solid flesh and bone. But science tells us that if you removed all the empty space from the atoms in your body, the entire human race would fit inside the volume of a sugar cube. We are 99.9999% empty space. So why do you feel solid? Why does the floor catch you when you fall? Because of electrical resistance. Because of a force field. You are a ghost made of light and energy, walking through a world made of the same. The ancients called this Maya, the grand illusion. Not an illusion that the world doesn't exist, but an illusion that it is what it appears to be. We are like people watching a movie and becoming so upset by the plot that we forget we are sitting in a theater. We scream at the screen. We cry over the characters. We forget the projector. The projector is your awareness. The film is your conditioning. Modern psychology calls this cognitive bias, or neural pathways. We are literally wired to repeat the same stories, to see the same movie over and over again, because it feels safe. Even if the movie is a tragedy, it is a familiar tragedy. But the ancient masters from the Stoics in Rome to the Zen monks in Japan all provided a way out of the theater. They didn't tell us to change the movie. They told us to look back at the light coming from the projector. Think about the way you talk to yourself. Most of us have a voice in our heads that never shuts up. It judges, it worries, it narrates. We've spent so much of our lives listening to this voice that we've made the mistake of thinking we are the voice. But if you can't hear the voice, who is the you that is listening? This is the gap that Eckhart Tolle speaks of. This is the watching of the watcher, found in the deepest layers of Advaita Vedanta. In that tiny space between a thought and the awareness of that thought lies your entire freedom. In that space, modern science is finding the flow state, a neurological condition where the ego centers of the brain, specifically the default mode network, actually shut down. When this happens, time seems to vanish. The sense of I disappears. We become one with the action, one with the moment. The ancients didn't need fMRI machines to find this state. They called it samadhi. They called it nirvana. They knew that the ego was not a thing you have to kill, but a knot you have to untie. And how do you untie a knot made of thought? Not by pulling on it, not by thinking more. You untie it by becoming still. Be still and know. It is perhaps the most famous spiritual injunction in history, and yet it is the hardest thing for a modern human to do. We are terrified of stillness because in the silence, the masks we wear start to slip. In the silence, we have to face the fact that we have been running away from a shadow that doesn't even exist. We've built a civilization on the pursuit of happiness, which implies that happiness is currently somewhere else. It's in the next promotion, the next relationship, the next version of the iPhone. But the hidden trap is the pursuit itself. As Alan Watts famously said, if you're always pursuing, you're always implying that you don't have it. You are reinforcing the state of lack. The ancients laughed at this. They compared us to a man riding a donkey, looking everywhere for his donkey. Science is now beginning to study the hedonic treadmill, the psychological phenomenon, where we quickly return to a baseline level of happiness, despite major positive or negative events. We are wired to keep wanting. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism designed to keep us gathering resources. But what served us on the savannah is killing us in the city. We are wanting ourselves into an early grave. The solution isn't to stop wanting entirely. That's just another form of wanting. The solution is to realize that the wanter is a fiction. Look at the way we treat the earth. Because we believe we are separate individuals, we treat the planet as an it, a resource to be extracted. We've disconnected the head from the body. But the ancient indigenous cultures, the ones we dismissed as primitive, understood the earth as a living intelligence. They saw the rivers as veins and the mountains as bones. Now, with the Gaia hypothesis, modern science is starting to agree. The earth is a self-regulating system that maintains the conditions for life. It behaves like a single cell. And we are the organelles within that cell. When we poison the water, we are poisoning our own blood. When we clear-cut the forests, we are removing our own lungs. The awakening that is happening now, the human awakening, is not just a spiritual luxury. It is a biological necessity. We are being forced by the very laws of reality to realize our interconnectedness, or we will cease to exist. This is the great work the alchemists spoke of. Transmutation, turning the lead of the separate ego into the gold of universal consciousness. They weren't talking about chemistry. They were talking about you. They were talking about the moment you realize that the void inside you isn't an empty hole to be filled with distractions. It is the womb of everything. It is the same zero-point field that quantum physicists describe a vacuum that isn't empty, but is actually teeming with infinite energy. You are a focal point where the entire universe has decided to become aware of itself. Let that sink in for a moment. You are not a small, insignificant creature on a tiny rock. You are the eyes of the world, as the poets say. The stars are not just above you, they are in you. The iron in your blood was forged in the same cosmic fire that created the galaxies. You are the universe's way of tasting a peach. You are the universe's way of feeling the warmth of a sun. You are the universe's way of wondering why it exists. When you realize this, the fear of not being enough simply evaporates. How can you not be enough when you are the whole? We have been living in a state of collective amnesia. We've forgotten our heritage. We've forgotten that we have the power to collapse the wave function of our lives into any shape we choose. But the alarm clock is going off. The convergence of ancient wisdom and modern science is that alarm. It is telling us that the real world we've been stressing about is just a thin veil. And the hand that reaches out to pull that veil back is yours. Think about the organ that beats inside your chest right now. For centuries, modern medicine treated the heart as nothing more than a mechanical pump, a sophisticated piece of plumbing designed to move oxygen through the system. But if you look at the texts of the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks, or the Sufi mystics, they spoke of the heart as the seat of intelligence. They believed the heart could see what the eyes could not. And once again, the data is catching up to the intuition. Researchers at the HeartMath Institute have discovered that the heart has its own brain, a complex network of 40,000 neurons that can sense, feel, and remember independently of the brain in our skull. Even more staggering is the discovery of the heart's electromagnetic field. It is the strongest in the body, several thousand times more powerful than the field produced by the brain. This field extends several feet away from your body in a toroidal shape. You are literally walking around in a bubble of your own heart's frequency. When you feel deep compassion or gratitude, the rhythm of that field becomes coherent, a smooth sine wave pattern. When you are frustrated or angry, it becomes jagged and chaotic. The ancients called this the purity of the heart. They knew that if your heart was out of rhythm, your entire reality would feel fractured. Now, science is showing that this field actually carries information. It affects the people around you. It affects the very static of the room you're in. You've felt this before. You've walked into a room where an argument just happened and felt the tension in the air. You weren't imagining it. You were sensing the chaotic electromagnetic residue of another human's heart. The ancients understood that we are not just talking to each other with words. We are broadcast towers. We are constantly tuning each other. Take a moment. Place your hand over your heart. Can you feel the pulse? That pulse is an echo of the first beat of the universe. We are taught to believe that our genetics are our destiny. We are told that we are born this way, and that our DNA is a fixed blueprint, a script already written by our ancestors that we must simply act out. But a new field of science called epigenetics is beginning to tear that script to pieces. It turns out that your DNA is not a fixed master plan. It is more like a library of possibilities. Which books are read, which genes are expressed, depends entirely on the environment. And the most powerful environment for your cells isn't just the food you eat or the air you breathe. It is the chemical bath of your emotions. When you live in a state of chronic stress, your brain pumps out cortisol and adrenaline. This sends a signal to your cells that the world is a dangerous place. The cells go into defense mode. They stop growing. They stop repairing. The ancients called these patterns of behavior samskaras. They described them as deep grooves in the mind, inherited from those who came before us. They knew that if you didn't cleanse the doors of perception, you would spend your whole life reacting to the traumas of your grandfather. Modern science is now proving that trauma can actually be passed down through the genetic code. We carry the ghosts of our ancestors' fears. But here is the miracle. Just as we can inherit the cage, we can also inherit the key. By changing your internal state, by moving from fear to curiosity, from anger to presence, you are literally signaling your genes to behave differently. You are not a victim of your biology. You are the architect of it. The human awakening is the moment you realize that you have the authority to rewrite your own code. Consider the structure of everything around you. If you look at a snowflake, a seashell, or the spiral of a galaxy, you see the same repeating mathematical patterns. The Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio. The ancients called this sacred geometry. They saw it as the language of God. They built their cathedrals and temples according to these proportions, because they knew that certain shapes resonate with the human soul. They knew that the universe is not a chaotic mess, but a fractal, a pattern that repeats itself at every scale. As above, so below, the emerald tablet of Hermes Trismegistus famously declared. Science has confirmed this through the study of fractals. The way a river system looks from a satellite is nearly identical to the way the veins look in your arm, which is nearly identical to the way neurons look in your brain. The universe is using the same blueprint over and over again. Why? Because it's the most efficient way to organize energy. This means that you are not an anomaly. You are not a mistake. You are a natural expression of the same mathematics that governs the stars. When you feel out of alignment, it's often because you've forgotten this inherent order. You've tried to build a life that goes against the grain of the cosmos. You've tried to force things that need to grow. You've tried to hold on to things that need to flow. Think about water. Lao Tzu, the author of the Tao Te Ching, said that the supreme good is like water. It benefits all things without trying. It flows to the low places that others despise. Water is soft, yet it can wear away the hardest rock. For a long time, Western science viewed water as just a simple chemical compound, H2O. But researchers like Masaru Emoto and others have suggested that water may actually have memory. That it can hold the frequency of the sounds and emotions it is exposed to. Given that your body is roughly 70% water, what kind of information are you storing in your own cells? Are you structured by beauty, or are you clouded by the noise of the world? This leads us to the power of sound. Every ancient tradition used sound as a tool for transformation. Chanting, drumming, the ringing of bells. They called it the word or the They knew that sound is just vibration, and vibration is the fundamental building block of matter. If you place sand on a metal plate and vibrate it with a specific frequency, the sand will spontaneously arrange itself into beautiful, complex geometric patterns. This is called cymatics. Change the frequency and the pattern changes. You are that metal plate, and your thoughts are the frequency. If your inner dialogue is a constant stream of self-criticism and worry, you are vibrating your own biology into a pattern of chaos. But if you can shift that frequency, if you can tune yourself to the vibration of knowing, the sand of your life will begin to arrange itself into a pattern of harmony. This isn't magic. It's physics. It is the resonance of the soul. We are living in a time where the shadow is being forced into the light. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow as everything about ourselves that we have pushed into the basement of the unconscious. Our unacceptable desires, our hidden fears, our repressed power. He warned that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Today, we see this playing out on a global scale. The collective shadow of humanity, our greed, our tribalism, our disconnectedness is being projected onto the screen of the world. We see it in the news, in the politics, in the environmental crises. It feels overwhelming. It feels like the world is falling apart. But from the perspective of the ancients, this is a necessary stage of the journey, the dark night of the soul. In alchemy, they called it the Negrido, the blackening, the stage where everything must be broken down and dissolved before it can be reborn. The hidden trap is to look at the crumbling of the old world and feel despair. But the awakening is to realize that the old world has to crumble to make room for the new one. The structures that were built on the illusion of separation cannot survive the transition into a world of interconnection. You are witnessing the death of a story. The story that says you are alone, that you are small, and that you are separate from the source of life. And as that story dies, a new one is being born. It's a story where science and spirituality are no longer enemies, but two eyes of the same face. One eye looks outward at the mechanics, the other eye looks inward at the meaning. When both eyes open, we gain depth perception. We see the world as it truly is. We see that the void is actually full, that the silence is actually a song, and that you are the one who has been invited to sing it. Take a deep breath. Feel the space around you. The air is thick with potential. The quantum foam is bubbling with possibilities that haven't been chosen yet. What will you choose? Will you choose to go back to sleep? To live in the comfortable, familiar tragedy of the ego? Or will you choose to step into the knowing? The ancients are waiting for us, not in the past, but in the timeless present. They are whispering that the journey was never about getting somewhere. It was about remembering where you've always been. Consider the concept of the holographic universe. In the 1970s, a physicist named David Bohm and a neurophysiologist named Carl Pribram independently reached a conclusion that seemed to defy every law of common sense. They suggested that our brains don't just perceive reality, they construct it based on interference patterns. They argued that the universe itself is a giant hologram. In a hologram, if you take a picture of a rose and cut it into 1,000 pieces, you don't get 1,000 fragments of a rose. You get 1,000 tiny, complete roses. Every part contains the whole. This is the scientific echo of a concept the ancient Buddhists called Indra's net. They imagined a vast cosmic web where every knot contains a jewel, and every jewel reflects every other jewel in the entire net. Think about what that means for your life. It means that you are not a part of the universe trying to find your place. You are the entire universe, focused through a specific point called you. The macrocosm is in the microcosm. The ocean is in the drop. This isn't just poetry. It is the fundamental architecture of your existence. When you feel a sense of lack or a sense of being lost, you are essentially a jewel in the net, forgetting that you are reflecting the entire web. You are trying to find the light, forgetting that you are the reflection of it. Take a moment to look around the room you're in. Every object, every color, every shadow is a reflection of a specific frequency. And your brain is the translator. If your brain didn't translate these frequencies, you wouldn't see a room. You would see a blur of energy, a sea of white noise. You are the one who gives the world its shape. You are the one who gives the world its meaning. But we've become so good at the translation that we've forgotten we are the translators. We've mistaken the map for the territory. We think the room is out there, independent of us. We think the problems are out there, independent of us. But if you change the translator, if you change the internal frequency, the room changes. The problems change. This is the secret that the mystery schools of Greece and the Gnostics of the desert guarded with their lives. They knew that salvation wasn't about being saved by an external deity. It was about metanoia. In the original Greek, metanoia doesn't mean repentance in the way we think of it today. It means to change your mind, to shift your perspective, to see from a higher vantage point. It is the act of stepping out of the hologram and realizing you are the light that creates it. How many times have you waited for the world to change before you allowed yourself to feel peace? I'll be happy when the debt is paid. I'll be calm when the relationship is fixed. I'll be whole when I get the recognition I deserve. This is the hidden trap in its most insidious form. It is the belief that the reflection can change the mirror. It's like trying to fix your hair by reaching out and touching the glass of the mirror. It's impossible. To fix the hair in the reflection, you must touch the hair on your head. To change the world in the hologram, you must change the consciousness that is projecting it. This is why the ancients focused so heavily on self-mastery. Not for the sake of ego, but because they understood that the self is the remote control for reality. Think about the concept of Wu-Wei in Taoism. Action through non-action. For the modern mind, this sounds like laziness. It sounds like doing nothing. But Wu-Wei isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing everything with the grain of the universe instead of against it. It's the difference between swimming upstream against a violent current and simply letting the river carry you. The river knows where it's going. The river has been to the ocean 1 billion times. Your life has a flow to it. Your soul has a trajectory. But we spend so much energy trying to steer the river. We try to micromanage every ripple. We try to bargain with the water. And we wonder why we are exhausted. We wonder why we feel burned out. Burnout is what happens when you try to be the source of power instead of the conductor of it. When you realize that you are the conductor, the pressure vanishes. You don't have to create your life from scratch. You just have to allow the life that is already within you to express itself. Imagine a seed. The seed doesn't try to become a tree. It doesn't read books on the 7 habits of highly effective oaks. The blueprint of the tree is already inside the seed. The potential is already there. All the seed needs is the right environment, the right soil, the right light. You are the same. Your greatness isn't something you have to build. It is something you have to uncover. The ancients called this remembrance. anamnesis. They believed that we don't learn anything new. We only remember what we forgot when we entered this physical body. We forgot our divinity. We forgot our power. We forgot that we are the dreamer of the dream. And modern science, in its own way, is trying to remind us. When we look at the brain's neuroplasticity, we see that we are not fixed. We can literally rewire our physical structure through the power of our attention. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. If you place your attention on your limitations, you reinforce the wiring of those limitations. You make the cage stronger. If you place your attention on the I am, the silent, observing presence that exists before any thought, you start to wire yourself for freedom. This is the observer breath mentioned in the ancient texts. The breath that doesn't just sustain the body, but awakens the mind. The breath that reminds you that you are the space in which everything is happening. Take that breath now. Not a shallow chest breath, but a deep belly breath. Feel the expansion. In that expansion, where are your worries? Where is the you that is struggling? For a brief moment, they are gone. They are just ripples on the surface of the lake. And you are the deep water. The hidden trap that keeps 90% of people asleep is the story of me. The story that says, I am my past, I am my mistakes, I am my bank account, I am my reputation. This story is a ghost. It has no substance. It only exists because you keep telling it. The moment you stop telling the story, the ghost vanishes. And what's left? What's left is the knowing. The knowing that you are the light that the ancients spoke of. The knowing that modern science is finally finding at the edge of the universe. The knowing that you have never, for a single second, been separate from the source of all things. We are living in the age of the integrated human. A human who can use a smartphone and also sit in deep meditation. A human who understands the laws of physics and also the laws of the spirit. A human who knows that the laboratory and the temple are the same room. This is the awakening. It's not a loud, dramatic event. It's a quiet realization. It's the feeling of a heavy weight being lifted off your shoulders. It's the realization that you can't stop fighting. You can stop trying to make it happen. Because it's already happening. The universe is breathing through you. The stars are shining through you. The ancient knowledge is not in a book. It's in your blood. It's in the silence between your thoughts. It's in the now. And the now is the only place where anything is ever real. Everything else is just a memory or a projection. But you are the isness. You are the amness. You are the witness of the grand unfolding. And as you wake up to this truth, the world around you begins to change. The colors become brighter. The coincidences become more frequent. The path becomes clearer. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You stepped out of the trap. You woke up from the dream. And for the first time in your life, you are truly, deeply, and completely home. What if the end of the search is actually the beginning of the seeing? We have spent the last hour traveling through the corridors of time, from the smoke-filled temples of the ancient world to the sterile, cold-lit laboratories of the modern era. We have seen how the superstitions of our ancestors are being rebranded as the breakthroughs of our physicists. But there is one final piece of the puzzle, one hidden truth that ties the quantum field to the human soul. It is the mystery of the collective. In the 1970s, researchers began to notice something strange. When a group of people practiced deep, focused meditation in a specific area, The crime rates in the surrounding city didn't just go down, they plummeted. They called this the Maharishi effect. Science struggled to explain it. How could people sitting in silence in a room affect the behavior of people they had never met, miles away? The ancients wouldn't have blinked at the data. They knew about the Akasha. They knew about the web of life. They knew that we are all nodes in a single, vast neural network of consciousness. When you light a candle in a dark room, the light doesn't stay on the wick. It fills the space. When you light your own consciousness, when you move from the frequency of survival and fear into the frequency of presence and love, you are not just helping yourself. You are literally changing the weather of the collective mind. You are a cell in the body of humanity. And when one cell begins to heal, the signal of health begins to ripple through the entire organism. Think about the weight of that responsibility and the beauty of that power. You are never just you. You are a localized expression of the whole. Carl Jung called this the collective unconscious. He believed that beneath our individual memories and personalities, there is a deep ocean of shared archetypes and wisdom, a cloud storage for the human spirit. Modern science is now exploring this through non-local consciousness, the idea that our minds are not trapped inside our skulls, but are actually part of a field that transcends space and time. This is why you sometimes know who is calling before you pick up the phone. This is why you feel the vibe of a place before you even walk through the door. You are an antenna, and for too long, you've been tuned to the static of the world's chaos. You've been tuned to the frequency of not enough. You've been tuned to the frequency of us versus them. But the ancients left us the tuning fork. They left us the breath. They left us the silence. They left us the practice of looking inward. Science is finally admitting that they have reached a wall. At the very edge of the physical world, things stop behaving like things and start behaving like thoughts. The materialist paradigm is dying. It served us for 400 years, helping us build bridges and cure diseases, but it cannot explain the one thing that matters most, the fact that you are aware. We are moving into the post-materialist era, an era where we finally understand that matter is not the mother of mind. Mind is the mother of matter. As Max Planck, the father of quantum theory, once said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness." This is the bridge. This is the hidden truth. The world is not happening to you. It is happening through you. So take a deep breath. Feel the stillness that exists behind the noise of your life. That stillness is not empty. It is pregnant with everything. It is the 0-point field. It is the Tao. It is the void. And it is exactly where you have always been. You don't need to find the truth. You just need to stop believing the lies. The lie that you are separate. The lie that you are broken. The lie that you are a biological accident in a cold, dead universe. You are the universe's most precious experiment. You are the ancient knowledge made flesh. And as you walk away from this video, don't just carry these ideas in your head. Carry them in your heart. Feel the coherence. Feel the resonance. The laboratory of the future isn't a building. It is your own awareness. The Great Awakening isn't a future event. It is a present realization. You are awake. You are here. And everything is exactly as it should be.